Hello, my name is Martin, and this is the Indie Game of the Week, The Last Federation. Last Federation is a grand strategy campaign-style game with tactical turn-based combat, guys. It released April 2014. It was developed and published by Arson Games. You can go ahead and get The Last Federation on Steam for $19.99 or $14.99 during the first week sale. Now, I'm not the world's greatest fan of grand strategy games. I've dabbled in them. I checked out Crusader Kings. I've checked out Europa, but they can be very intimidating games with sheer complexity. I guess what I'm trying to say is they have a huge learning curve. And it's not that I don't like those types of games, it's just that sometimes I don't exactly have all the time in the world to dedicate to these very complex games. But what I like about The Last Federation is it has a pretty awesome tutorial system that introduces you to the things that you'll be dealing with and managing, but it doesn't overwhelm you, and it kind of does it in a very slow-paced, good way. Now, because this game is an extremely layered game, there's chances are that I may miss some features. Please don't shoot me. It's a large game. There's a lot to talk about here. There's a lot of facets to talk about. In the game, you play the last of a dying race that was once hated and kind of just reviled, and you've kind of decided to go against your former species' ways and try to bring the galaxy into an age of peace by bringing them all together under one banner and making a federation, hence The Last Federation. It's going to be a pain in the ass though, so let's get to it. I've been playing the game for about 2 hours now. I'm going to load up kind of pre-made game, and I'll show you some of the ability to make games here in a little bit, but I just want to touch upon the features that I've already unlocked. Which I've unlocked from what I gathered, because I also kind of dabbled into turning out the tutorial mode. I've unlocked most of the features of this game. Now, the game has two facets, and this is kind of the first facet that you'll be dealing with, and the facet that you'll probably be dealing with a good 70% of the game. This is the screen where you can deal with the different alien races and kind of see how things are going throughout the entire galaxy, where you'll be manipulating races, talking to races, giving them technologies, and just a whole host of things that you'll be doing on this screen. And it's all brought to you very kind of ingenious way by just simply clicking on them and kind of deciding what kind of actions you want to do with them. Like, well, I want to do a friendly action for the Pelatians here on their homeworld, and that will gain me points that they will like me more. More influence means more ability to kind of nudge them in the direction that I want them to go in, and to have them do the things that I want. Also, I can take hostile actions, which is basically kind of attacking them and doing horrible things to them. Corporate espionage, political espionage, social economic espionage. A lot of different horrible things you can do to these races, and that will obviously make you will lose influence with that race. For instance, the Acutians here, I have a negative 586 influence with them. They hate my guts. Now, that isn't to say that I am permanently locked off from that race. There's actually ways to kind of backdoor your way into a race and get them to do what you want. It's not easy, but it's possible. The overall grand goal of the game is to obviously bring all these species together and to make a federation. To make a federation, you have to get, well, several species to like you, and once they like you, then you form a federation. The game doesn't stop there, though. Once you form a federation, the rest of the planets will probably more than likely form together to form, I guess you could say, almost an anti-federation and try to stop you from uniting all of them. They don't want to be under one banner. They all have their own selfish goals and their own needs. And there is one thing, there's 8 distinct races in this game, guys. Each with their own personality, their own way of doing things, their own benefits and bonuses that each of them have. Some of them are good at being at war. Some of them are really good at the political game. Some of them are good at doing research. They are all very distinct. Now, let's talk about what you're looking at right here. On the bottom of the screen, there's several tabs that you'll be going throughout this entire game. And this, yes, it's kind of a menu-intensive game as you kind of talk to people and start dealing with things. Your logbook is just a very simplistic kind of tutorial guide. It kind of tells you what it's already learned. Your computer advisor kind of is a character to give you hints as to what to do next. But for the most part, the game kind of drops you into the middle of things and lets you figure out what to do and how to go about things in your own way. And there's several ways to do things, to go about making a federation, for sure. This screen basically just tells you how you're doing all in all in getting a federation going. This one is a racial power grid. It shows who is in the lead as far as thing goes, as far as, let's say, technology or science or what have you. There's several different graphs and charts. This screen basically tells you how all of the relations are doing as far as each race it comes to each other. So, for instance, we click on the burlesque here. We can see that we've given them lots of gifts. We oppressed the Hydral, what they did not like. Well, they don't like me because I was a Hydral. That's what the name of the main race is. That's what you are. You're a Hydral. A slave trader. I've dealt some slaves. Things like that. We can also see the relation to other races. For instance, the Accousians. They think that they're weaklings, but they have also well-being admiration for them. So you can kind of get the idea of how that screen tells you what's going on. Of course, there is a tech progress tree. And it's one of the interesting aspects to this game is technology. Technology doesn't necessarily always benefit you, but it does benefit your ship, your one ship, which is, by the way, if you haven't seen it, which is what that little dot is. That's my one ship. You are that dot. You're one vessel in this vast universe that's trying to cause and influence all this change. And the tech kind of can be beneficial to you depending on which technology you develop. For instance, all the technology on the top part of the screen, the red and green stuff, will help your ship. Will help make your ship faster, stronger, be able to take more shots, do more damage, what have you, and it will just help you in general as far as combat goes. Now, when you start going downwards towards this stuff, for instance, grand military powers, planet improvements, population, nano repair bots, bomb shelters, all this stuff is for you to gift to other races. And that will increase your influence and also help that race develop that technology and improve itself and maybe start, for instance, producing troops faster or help their economy more quickly. Under the detail tab, there's even more information. Your inventory of the things that you have on you, the technologies you have, the bribe items you have, which are items that you can use to kind of go to the council of races. For instance, like the Peltian Collective here, I can say, well, I want to talk to, well, actually, there's no one here to talk to. There's certain planets that have certain people to talk to, but you can basically go kind of try to influence the council of these races, or they're not always councils, they can be dictatorships, or sometimes they're a hive mind. It really all depends on the race. But basically, you go here and you can use these bribe items to kind of mess with them and get influence going, make military deals, local deals, foreign deals, trade deals, federation deals, and can kind of manipulate them more and more. You can also customize your flagship, which is another part of the game, is mostly bait for the combat part of the game, which we're going to be touching upon a little bit later. But you can definitely upgrade and get different pieces of equipment, offensive abilities, operations, and special abilities, and these can all be found or researched or stolen or taken or gifted through dealing with the different races. You also have your Armada graphs, which is, like I said, there is a lot of charts here for you to kind of mess around with if you're really deep into that kind of tactical graphing type of thing, seeing how things are shaping throughout the entire universe, how it got to that point. All these kinds of graphs are here for you to kind of look at and play with. So now let's look at the other side of this coin, I guess you could say, the other side of this game. Which is the combat, which is, to be honest with you, the part that I kind of enjoy. I enjoy the combat quite a bit because it kind of breaks up the monotony of doing all of the, menu switching and dealing with this race or selling slaves or going to the black market, which, yes, there's a black market which you will be going to constantly to buy technologies and weapons and buying bribe items, selling bribe items, hiring scientists, security, construction workers, and things to help you manipulate the galaxy even more and more and more. As the game progresses, the alien races are not automatically spacefaring. You can kind of choose which races you want to give the gift of spacefaring technology, and they will develop eventually and start doing all that thing. But eventually, if you can see right here, for instance, in an hour and 13 minutes, it's in-game time, I'm pretty sure. These races will eventually become spacefaring themselves automatically. And they will join the galactic, I guess you could say opera, the galactic political machination of the entire universe, and you'll have to start dealing with them as much as you deal with the races that you've already been dealing with. Trying to bring them into your federation, or annihilating them, or politically undermining them. You get the idea. So we're going to go ahead and get into the battle system here. I'm going to randomly attack a Accousian flagship here. And like I said, it's a tactical turn-based combat game, guys. So the enemy right here is southeast of us. And we kind of have a lot of choices as to what we can do here right now. Let's talk about what we're looking at first off foremost. On the top left, we have my health, which is represented by the green bar, which is my hull. Below that is my shield bar, which is obviously my shields. Below that is the ability to manipulate the power of where your ship's core is going. So for instance, I have a lot of energy going into weapons right now. I can degrade that, put more energy into shields. I can degrade my weapons even farther and put them more into, let's say, speed. And basically, depending on what you're doing and what turn it is, or if you're feeling very overpowered, you could just say turn off the shields down to the minimum and just power all the weapons and obliterate everything in your path. As you can imagine, the more you power up a certain system, the more better it does. On the bottom left of the screen is kind of an explanation of who is in the battle. Also, it can give you kind of an explanation of what the hell's going on and what you're doing there. But it basically, in general, tell you who is participating in this battle. For instance, the Acutians. But if there was more races here, it would tell you their political stance towards you, if they were enemies or if they were allies. So every turn here, you will click on a space. You will move you will say, "I want to move in this direction." You will also pick the weapon that you want to use. The enemy is doing the exact same thing, by the way. They're moving, deciding what weapon they want to use. You can hover over your enemy and kind of determine what is the best weapon to use. As you can see, on the bottom it says energy blaster, minigun, and then it says gravity lance. The energy blaster is the weapon I'm going to want to use. So I go over here, click on energy weapon, and it kind of shows you this orange circle, which is the range of your energy blaster. He's out of range, so chances are for this turn, I'm not going to be able to hit him. See, I didn't really get to do much damage to him because we were just kind of approaching each other. He's also released his fighters to kind of try to hurt my ships around me and try to do more damage. We can do the same thing, too, with these abilities on the bottom here of the screen right here, which are kind of like special abilities. This one, for instance, is called a shortwave virus. It kind of, every time you use one of your abilities, your turn automatically ends. You don't move, you don't attack, you just use that ability. And they all have different kinds of effects and different things that they can do. For instance, this one kind of infects medium and smaller ships, and they kind of turn to my side. A very useful weapon if I were to, let's say, fly into the middle of all of his fleet like so. Let's see if I can make this work. I've never actually used this, so I'm kind of curious. Did I use the right one? Yes, I did. Okay. So now all these green fighters right here, I think, are now mines. They have turned against him, and they will probably begin firing on him. Well, at least I hope so. Yes, allied, yeah. And that's just one example of the many different kinds of abilities that you'll get in this game. There's also stunner. There's also defensive ones. There's also ones to not necessarily help you in this battle, but let's say there's like ones where you can bombard the planet below you. There's just a lot of different kinds of abilities you can use here, guys. You can also kind of decide the turn radius of your ship. You're like, okay, I want to go here and then turn. You can do that with kind of holding shift and then pressing the button. It'll decide that movement course. The more you turn, though, the more less chances are you have of you have less movement radius, I should say. So I'm going to power down my weapons, my speed here a bit. Power down that up a little bit more. These guys are now my allies, so I'm going to just continue firing here. You can also decide how you go about firing. Up till now, we've been kind of using auto fire. We've been leaving it up to the computer to decide how it wants us to fire. Basically, it'll pick the closest target or whatever's weakest, and it'll load on that particular target. But if we don't want it to, we can fire on an exact point. We can hold our fire or fire at a very specific target, which I just did not do. His shields are almost down, so we're going to go this way. We're going to go fire a selected ship. We're going to click on his ship. It'll do that again. Once his shields are down completely, you will see that your weapon of choice may change. The gravity lance, for instance, is now the highest damage per second weapon that I can use against him to do the most damage. So I'm going to power down my speed here. Power up my weapons. We'll take a look at it. I'm going to do possibly 19,488 damage to his hull. He has a hull of 72,000 currently. So let's plot a course. We'll go that way. We'll switch to the gravity lance, which has a less range because it's kind of a beam type weapon. Well, again, we'll pick fire at select target, and we'll start unloading on his ship. Now we've done a massive amount of damage to him. We did 50,000 points of damage to his ship. Once we destroy his ship, by the way, the battle ends. We get the loot or whatever it is that we got from this. Chances are I'm just going to get credits, which I'll use to buy more political machination tools, either, you know, buying influence, buying bribe tools, scientists, goons, which help protect your space stations, which we'll touch upon here a little bit in a second. We destroyed him, and basically that instantly ends the combat. So you kind of get an idea of how the combat system is very different from the normal game itself, and it really does break up that type of gameplay, and I really enjoy that, because sometimes you're like, oh man, I'm just kind of overwhelmed with this entire political things, and it kind of caters to that inner gamer inside of you that just kind of wants to blow shit up. So once you defeat somebody, you get obviously brought to the screen where you can determine the losses that you took, your allies took, the things that you did, the amount of time you took, the weapons you used, yada yada, things that you gained. For instance, I got 800 credits. And the amount of influence that you will either gain or lose depending on the actions that you took. And then you're brought back to this screen and go about whatever it is that you were doing. There's also space stations in this game, which you can kind of, once the aliens start developing more and more, the aliens themselves have almost this entirely different game that they're playing that you really can't see. They are developing technologies in their planet themselves, developing their economy and technologies, and building up their own space fleet to kind of do things. Eventually, the Akushans here started launching these things called outposts, science outposts, military outposts, manufacturing outposts. And it kind of adds a more tactical layer to the gameplay, as you can capture those, take them away from your enemy, and give them to your allies or whoever's in your federation or whoever you're trying to gain influence with. And again, that is just a very simplistic, hold on, I don't want to attack that, no. I want to click on that. You can go again, just click on these posts, the outposts, these planets, and it'll bring you to a sub screen where you can click on outpost details to see what that outpost is doing, what it's producing, what it has there. Also, what friendly acts you can do for it. And in a way, it's almost kind of like I read this, but it kind of reminded me, and I'd have to agree, it kind of almost reminds me of Mountain Blade, with the amount of things that you can be doing. It's kind of like you're walking up to the lords of this world and basically saying, hey, I want to do a favor for you in exchange for influence in your world, and that you'll like me, and I can hopefully prosper an alliance with you and make something grow out of this. Whereas Mountain Blade was more combat focused, this is definitely obviously more politically focused. So now that we've checked that out, like I said, there's 8 distinctive races. There's all turn-based combat. The graphics are pretty, I like the graphics. They're not the world's greatest graphics, but it lends itself to that type of style of game. And it looks okay. All the art is pretty awesome with the backgrounds of the planets and the detail that they put into the races themselves. For instance, if I were to go to the Burlost Warlords here, you can talk to them, talk to their prime leaders who have quite a bit of leverage with currently. And the graphics in the combat system are pretty decent in themselves. Sound-wise, again, it's pretty I like the sound. I love the music of this game by far. The controls are very simplistic. It's click, really not much more to it than that. Another thing I like about this game, which we're going to go ahead and exit out of here, we're going to go back to the main menu, is what I like about this game is that it also has, if you are, let's say you're an advanced player, you can mess with how you start this game pretty massively. You can also change the difficulty quite a bit, from easy to hard. The combat difficulty has several different levels of difficulty, from easy to apparently misery. And it just changes the way things work in either the political side of the game or the combat side of the game. You can also change the year that you start thing, which planet that you start off from. If you want to have an Iron Man mode, which doesn't let you save, it basically lets you save and quit, and that's it. Permadeath. You can also skip the tutorial, or you can just play the game in an observer mode and kind of just watch how things develop. Now, I want to show you really quick what the game looks like without any tutorial, just for you to get an idea that I did pretty much kind of show you the bare bones gist of this game. There's a lot of detail in this game, guys. There's a lot of details to be talked about here. I mean, you can touch upon what the economic tabs are, what these different numbers mean, the different currencies. You can also look at the planet details, see what they're producing, what's going on, with the resources that they have, the owner's actions, and things like that. There's just a lot of complexity here for you to digest, and I know a lot of people love these types of things. But as you can see, this is a non-tutorial version of the game. This is an advanced mode of the game. As you can see, really there isn't much to explain, and there isn't much difference between what I showed you and this. So like I said, you can play the game for about 2 hours and you'll get the full access to the game, the full kind of dynamics of the game. But chances are there's probably tabs missing here because I have yet to form a federation. So there's probably even more to this game in itself that I have not even gained access to. Now, there's a couple things I wish I could do in this game, and I feel like I should mention these. You will be going around doing all these favors and helping all these different races develop and giving them spacefaring technology and what have you, and developing them and forming a federation. But I just wish there was a way for me to kind of develop my own planet and do my own research. The only way to do research right now is to kind of help an alien race to develop their technology. Once you help them develop that technology, you get a copy of it, and then it's yours for you to keep. But there's a part of me that really, really, really wanted to have my own planet and to kind of have my own base set up, to start having put up my own outposts and my own fleet to deal with, my own soldiers to deal with, my own political and social economic things to deal with. For the most part, you'll be just dealing with theirs, not yours. But in a way, it's yours because you're the one that's kind of influencing and nudging it. So it's kind of weird in the way that the game works. Also, I forgot to mention this, on the right side of the screen is kind of a news feed of things that are going on throughout the galaxy here, guys. So yeah, guys, it's just a really intense game, guys. It's really complicated. I enjoy this game quite a bit, and I also enjoy the fact that the game has quite a bit of replay value, guys. No one game is exactly alike, and depending on the federations that you form, the races that you piss off, the game will respond in different, unique ways every time. I believe that The Last Federation is an interesting take on the grand strategy campaign genre. It has that complexity, but it also has that combat to take the edge off of the constant menu switching or doing favors or pushing these people's buttons to get them to do this and that. And plus, like I mentioned earlier, with the myriad of difficulties, it will challenge a new player as much as an expert player. Now, there's still issues to be worked out on in this game. There's some bugs. If you skim the forums, people are doing what they do best and breaking the game. But these are issues that are being worked on, and constant updates and patches are being put out to fix these. I also believe that there's some balancing issues to be done to the combat portion of the game, as it kind of slides between extremely easy and then extremely hard very quickly. But again, patches. I also wish that there were some things that I wanted to be added to the game, like I would love to have been able to play multiplayer or perhaps have my own planet, but I can understand from a design standpoint why that's not there. So if you enjoy political manipulation, dealing with diverse races that have their own unique traits and the way that they handle things, or if you just want to be a dick and blow up ships and be a warmonger, you can do that and more in The Last Federation. Big thanks to the developer for a chance to review this game. Thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe, and I'll keep bringing you awesome indie games, and this has been the Indie Game of the Week, The Last Federation.